Hello, and welcome to Let's Talk About It with Taylor Nolan, a podcast focused on mental health, relationships, dating and sex, and all around personal development. But honestly, no topic is off limits. I am your host, Taylor Nolan, a former reality TV star, practicing psychotherapist, and future certified sex therapist in Seattle, Washington. I am super excited to welcome you all back to the show after taking a longer than expected break from releasing episodes every week for 100 episodes over 2 years, I want to say. So thank you for being patient with me, and I'm very excited to share these new episodes. So welcome to episode 101. Wow. Wild. These next few episodes were recorded in Toronto. You all know how much I love my Canadians. In this episode 101, we'll be discussing virginity, sex clubs, nudity, and generally just how to be more comfortable talking about sex and various types of sexual relationships. But before we get to that with my lovely guest, Dr. Jess, I just want to say that moving forward with the podcast, I am definitely opening myself up more and sharing more of my own personal experiences with you all in honest hopes of creating more togetherness and hopefully sharing some lessons, some laughs, some reflections along the way that are helpful in your own personal development, as well as hopefully providing some education. And prior to taking a break from the show, I really realize that sexual health has even more stigma attached to it than mental health does. So more episodes will be focused on sexual health and sharing of my own personal sexual experiences. Many of you know that I'm a practicing psychotherapist. I'm an LMHCA here in Seattle. That's a licensed mental health counselor, but I'm also currently going through training to be certified as a sex therapist. So this work is important to me both personally and professionally. And really, this show would not be what it is if it weren't for all of you. So I really want to encourage you all to participate in this adventure with me. So if you'd like to share an experience you've had, lessons you've learned, or have questions about anything, mental health, sexual health, dating, social justice, anything that you've seen me talk about and have more questions on, or that you want me to talk about that I haven't covered yet, I want you to send in a voice memo to ask.letstalkaboutit@gmail.com. I get a lot of DMs and I'm not always able to read them, and really want you guys to physically be a part of this podcast. So please send a voice memo to ask.letstalkaboutit@gmail.com, and you'll be featured in an episode anonymously. I'll answer your question, give some input wherever I can, potentially have a guest weigh in, and continue the conversations around mental and sexual health and social justice and all the taboo things. I really, really super thoroughly enjoyed recording these new episodes, and I'm honestly very excited to share them with you. The guests have all been fantastic. I've handpicked them myself, and I'm so happy to have them as a part of the Let's Talk About It community. So with all of that said, let's talk about it. All right, today I am here with Dr. Jessica O'Reilly, aka Sex with Dr. Jess. She's a sex and relationship expert with a background in education. Her research and passion involves teacher training in sexual health, and she volunteers in schools and universities to help bring better sex and relationship education, which is so incredibly needed. But Jess is also a television personality, author, and podcast host of the Sex with Dr. Jess podcast, and an international speaker who has facilitated hundreds of corporate workshops and retreats in 35 countries. There are several topics I want to get into today with her, including virginity, managing jealousy, and how to spice things up in your relationship. But as always, we will see where this chat takes us, and also in advance, apologize if there is any kind of background noise. We are at a co-working space in Toronto, making it work, but let's get started. Thank you so much, Jess, for making the time to come and chat with me today.
Happy to be here. I like that you opened with an apology because that's very Canadian, right? Just say sorry over we don't even mean it, though, when we say it.
Yes. I'm really getting accustomed to the culture here already, as you can tell.
A lot of sorry, but.
Yes. That's how I should have said it. Sorry, but we're in a co-working space. There might be background noise. So first, I found you. I'm not even sure actually how I found you. I don't remember. But I think actually someone might have suggested your profile because I asked people like who in Toronto would they want to see on the podcast. And I'm pretty sure that's how I found you, that someone recommended you as a guest. And one of the things I noticed right off the bat on your profile is that you listed your background, that you are Chinese, Jamaican, and Irish. And my first thought in that was like, I bet you she put that there because people have definitely been like, hey, what are you?
You think every damn day since I was a little girl.
Yes.
And it makes you wonder what you are yourself.
It does.
But it's this question, where are you from? Mm-hmm. Well, I'm from Toronto, right? Well, where's your mom from? Mm-hmm. Your parents. Well, my dad's from Vancouver and my mom's from Jamaica. Mm-hmm. But where are you from?
Yeah.
Right? It's very confusing. I remember even as a kid explaining that I was Chinese and Jamaican on one side, Irish on the other, and folks were like, you have 3 parents? Right? So, it's a nonstop question. You must receive it all the time.
I do. And I talk about it quite frequently on Instagram, and I've done a podcast episode on it as well. And some people really get it, and they're like, oh, yeah, wow, that's like really invasive and like can be really violating and kind of dehumanizes you. And other people just don't get it at all. And look at it as this very innocent, like they're trying to compliment you because you look beautiful, which is just like sexualizing my race. And then there's people who just kind of think, well, like, yeah, white people say that too because we're curious about like, the European background. And it's such a different experience.
I think you'd be hard pressed to find a white person who hears, what are you or where are you from or what's your parents' background? 1/10 as often. I mean, I live with a white person. I'm married to a white person. I don't think anyone ever asks him unless it's relevant to the conversation. If we're talking about our favorite foods, you might be curious why he likes meat and potatoes. No. It's very, it can reduce you to your race. Mm-hmm. It can feel fetishizing. Yeah. And I think what people have to really recognize is that it's not necessarily about intent. It's about outcome. So
absolutely.
I'm not suggesting that your intent is malicious. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying that the outcome is, first of all, it's tiring. Yeah. I also don't really want to explain myself. I know, and you must know this, how it's going to be followed up with you're beautiful or you're exotic.
Yep.
Exotic for where? Right? So, for instance, Jamaica is such an interesting place because people will say, well, you don't look Jamaican. And I'm like, well, you should probably look up the history of Jamaica because I know you've been to a resort and all that. Yeah. But the history of Jamaica, the reason there are so many different people in Jamaica is that, well, we were colonized. The Spanish came, the British came, the Brits brought over the Irish. Black people from Africa were brought over as slaves. Chinese folks like me were brought over as indentured workers when they decided you had to pay us a tiny itty bitty bit. There's so many reasons that our national slogan is out of many one people. So I look Jamaican, you can look Jamaican, my white husband can look Jamaican. There are many different ways to look Jamaican. And if you look at the indigenous Jamaican people, like the Maroons, the Arawaks, most killed off in war, just as our situation is here in Canada. Most of our indigenous people have been killed.
And I love the beginning of what you said, too, that it's not always about your intention. And that's a big part of what we talked about in our episode about what are you, which was intent versus impact. And you also kind of hinted towards this notion of like, I don't want to put in that energy. There is such a high level of emotional energy that people of color and mixed race people have to put into just explaining their presence that I don't think white people are always necessarily aware of. And it's not to shame white people in that or any of that, but it's just a fact. And I think people struggle sometimes accepting those truths.
Right. I think it can be hard to hear that somebody deals with something you don't deal with as well. Yeah. And I think all of us are learning, as a mixed race person like me who's kind of passing, right? I can sort of pass as white in some circles. And everywhere I travel, I can often fit in. I'm in Mexico, they think I'm Mexican. I'm in Nepal, they think I'm from Nepal. I'm in India even, they think I'm Indian. And so I have that privilege as well. And so I know that my struggles aren't as hard as someone else's struggles. And I think that, it's also a kind of a personal question. And so I think we're just becoming a little bit more mindful of how other people feel.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I'm curious, being married to a white man, and I'm curious just in comparison to my experiences with dating mostly white men, what your experience has been like being in this, interracial relationship, and how you've, gone through dating in the past, if you felt like your background was being fetishized, or, that there was perhaps a large cultural difference with someone not being able to accept you or put you in this weird kind of exotic box.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely been fetishized, never by my partner. I wouldn't stay with someone. Yeah. I would walk out of a date if I felt I was being fetishized. But I've heard it from my husband's family. I remember his uncle saying, "Oh, you're Chinese and you went to that very white school. You were like a delicacy there." And I'm like, I can't sit at this table. I'll tell you, my husband's an ally. He's a strong ally. He's a vocal ally. He knows that it's not going to work in any other way. Yeah. We've been together forever. We were kids when we met. We've been together, I think, 18 years.
Whoa.
18 years. Yeah. So my entire adult life. Yeah. And, he will speak up because his voice has a different impact than mine. So he knows that that's his job. He knows that he and I have everything we need. And so we don't have as much to lose. He lost a client yesterday over calling out racism. So he's a white guy. Yeah. The client is also a white guy. And the client, was, Brandon called something out that is happening in the Canadian media right now. And he lost him. And he's like, good riddance, you know? Right? In the beginning of his career, that would have been a lot harder, but that still speaks to his privilege, because being white, you can kind of teeter both sides. Even someone like me, I don't know about you, you might be able to teeter both sides as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually frequently get how do you stay so tan during winter?
Lord help me.
And I joke, and I'm just like, well, it helps to be half black.
Yeah, right? Well, I'm just ashy.
Yes. Okay, wait. Can we talk about ashiness, though? Because this has been a topic, I've shared it before on the podcast, that this is kind of been my marker to be able to tell when I'm dating a white guy and he says that he's dated a black woman before, or a woman of color before, but then he admits, and we stumble upon the fact that he doesn't understand what ashy is, where then I'm like, all right, this is a new experience.
My husband knows, because I can't reach my back properly. He's got to put that cream on. I mean, he doesn't have to. That's not a thing for him. There's of course, there's great variation in all people. Yeah. But he has more, oily skin, doesn't have to moisturize. I'm like 4 times a day, or I'm going to lose weight losing skin.
It's just flaking off. It's really...
I'm going to lose layers of myself. And it's wintertime now, right?
Yeah. I mean, especially in Canada.
If they really love you, don't they keep some nice, moisturizing cream in the house?
Yeah. Well, I love, the coconut oil rub downs, or, I could, shea butter rub down. Yes. Yeah. But wow, I can't believe, I didn't realize that you and your husband had been together for so long.
Forever. We met as kids. This is the story. We met in a bar. I was bartending and he was bar backing. Yeah. So busboying. Yeah. And one night I was like, hey, are we hanging out? And he said, I don't know. And then we hung out, as the kids say, in his mom's purple Escort. And then we moved in together maybe 4 or 5 days later. No joke.
What?
Yeah. Not because we knew. People are like, oh, when you know, you know. No, it's not because we knew, because we were dumb and young. And it happened to work out. And it happened to work out because we worked really hard on it. We have a nice relationship. He's a really nice, wonderful I like him more now than I even did then. So I don't know, man. Life's good.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, it is time for a short break here. I want to share with you all one of the lovely sponsors that help make this podcast possible, called Ashford University. And Ashford University, it provides online master's degree programs where you can learn at your own pace. You can study wherever you're the most comfortable learning. For me, when I was in my study mode, I needed to be comfy. That was super important to me. I did most of my studying from my couch, snuggling with my cats. But I know it's a new year, and many of you are setting new goals, which might revolve around education. And if so, then Ashford University might be a good option for you. One of the things that I prioritized in my graduate program search was finding a university that did not require the GRE because A, I'm not a huge fan of standardized testing, and B, because it didn't make sense for the program that I wanted. And at Ashford University, they have easy enrollment, so the GRE, the GMAT, and other standardized test scores are not required for enrolling. And you can take one course at a time. Just being enrolled in one class at Ashford means that you're considered a full-time student. So that could be really, really helpful to just have a convenient online master's program where you can learn at your own pace and just get ready to grab some new opportunities. So you guys can start your master's program today. You can enroll now by going to ashford.edu/Taylor. That's ashford.edu/Taylor to start your master's degree today. Again, ashford.edu/Taylor. And now we can get back to the show. You touch on the nice piece, and that's something I've shared recently on Instagram, and I've received a lot of feedback from people that just dating and this concept of someone just being nice to you sometimes is really difficult to actually allow in. That sometimes there's this like self-sabotaging around someone just being a nice, sweet person to you and questioning if you're worth that or if you really see yourself like experiencing that, not trusting it, being very, very skeptical of why someone's being nice to you. And obviously I think that stems from previous relationships and how how you grow up seeing love modeled for you, and all kinds of things. But I think it is absolutely beautiful when you do allow that nice in. I'm currently working on that, but
you should. I mean, we know that kindness is the determining factor in long-term relationships, right? We have all these different factors that, lead to passion and lasting love, but ultimately it's kindness. And, there are a lot of other things I could say about my husband. He's very, very funny. He's, quite thoughtful. He's very handsome to look at.
That helps.
But that's really what rings true to me, is that he's nice to everyone. He's not just, and maybe nice isn't the word, it's kind.
Yes, right? The kindness, for sure.
Yeah.
And I recently did a breakup episode a few months ago, ended a relationship, and I think back so frequently to the fact that most of what I would say was just, will you just be nice to me? Like, just be nice. Like, that's all I'm asking. Like, just be sweet, please. Like, I just want you to be sweet to me. And, like, I sound, like, super naggy, but it was, like, I had to, like, nag just to get, like, can you just be sweet and be nice? Yeah. Like, that was what I wanted. Yeah. But then when I get it, sometimes I'm like, why are you doing this?
Yes. As you said, the modeling of love makes a difference.
Yes.
I guess I've always felt I deserve someone to be really nice to me. And it's interesting because my parents aren't together, and they're really nice to each other. Really thoughtful. So, for example, my father lives in our house, though. So that's how nice my husband is.
Yeah.
Especially culturally speaking, to be like a Chinese Jamaican person, for your parents to move in is very normal. For a white Canadian of British descent, that's very exceptional. So my dad lives with us, and when my mom brings me over food, because she's the nicest, she also packs stuff for my dad.
Oh,
right? They're very nice to each other, even though they're not together. And I think that's the other thing. We sometimes think that the longevity is a measure of relationship when it's not. It's the fulfillment. It's the connection. It's what you get out of it. It's not just, are we together? Because people will say, oh, your parents are divorced. I'm like, yeah, but they have a good relationship. And then I see people who stay together. Way to go. You stayed together, but you're miserable. You hate each other, and you don't like yourselves.
Yeah. That's always the scary part, and I think that's usually a kind of warning sign to exit a relationship is when you start to realize you're losing yourself in it.
And you don't feel good about yourself.
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes you're going to feel bad in relationships. It's not like my husband doesn't make me feel badly sometimes.
Yeah.
Once a month, I make him feel badly. At least once a month for a few days.
At least once a month.
But I don't. I mean, I try to never make him feel badly about himself.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you should feel good about yourself. I always said that with kids, if there's anything you can give them, it's a sense of self-worth, right? Like, because when you feel good about yourself, you want to treat other people nicely, right?
Absolutely.
You want to put that out there. And when you feel bad about yourself, we know that translates into not treating people well. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And tell me if this is too personal of a question, and we can skip past this, but one of the topics I really want to chat about is virginity. And being that you've been with your husband for so long, was that something that you experienced with him, or did you experience, I mean, you were working at a bar, so
no,
I'm assuming
I was an
adult. you had partners before him.
I had sex with my boyfriend in high school at like what would have been a below average age, so a younger age. And
what is average now?
So it's 16 and a half, around 16 and a half. Yeah.
So that was what it was when I was around that age, but I thought it had gone lower.
No, it's remained fairly constant for intercourse. Sorry.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we can talk about the fact that, of course, virginity is a social construct. Of course, there are lots of different ways to have sex. But when we talk about like a P and a V, we're talking about 16 to 16 and a half across North America. So that holds true for both Canada and the States. And I think I was 15 or almost 15. And I had such a positive experience. Like, I went to the health station. My boyfriend offered to come with me. I can't remember if they did an exam, but they certainly talked to me about how to use birth control. We also used condoms. He said that if I wanted to talk to his older sister, who was quite a bit older, she'd be happy to talk to me. We really talked about it before we did it. And
there
again,
was some planning. And
then that's the determining factor in these positive outcomes with sex. Are you talking about sex before, during, after? You'll have better sex. And so I was really lucky. And I would credit him, I would really credit probably his older sisters more than I would credit myself, because I didn't grow up with comprehensive sex education. I went to Catholic school. So in Ontario, Canada, where I'm from, Catholic schools are actually publicly funded. So you can choose to go to Catholic school or public school, even though there's always talk of dissolving the Catholic school system because it's an economical drain on our system. So we didn't learn. It's not like I knew about the different options. None of my friends were having sex. But I had a really good experience. I don't even know that I consider it my first time, because we were already doing other things. But it's interesting because when people think about sex at a younger age, and 15 is still a younger age, I think I was 15. I don't actually remember. It wasn't something I celebrated. I think they assume that it's traumatic, or that it's sloppy, or that it's a poor decision, or something that you regret. But I don't feel that way at all. I've been kind of lucky in that respect, because even adults are having sex that feels traumatizing, or sex that they regret, or sex that isn't with open communication. So I guess I was kind of lucky to have an initial, what do they call it? Sexual debut.
Yes. Yeah.
That was positive.
Yeah. Even as you say, it wasn't something I, like celebrated, but it was like a good experience. Like I think most people wouldn't even think to use that word celebrate, because it's so ingrained in us that we're losing this thing, and that it's a loss of our innocence, and it's a loss of, our potential value for future partners. And there's so many just interesting things around virginity that I would love for us to kind of maybe dig a little bit deeper into. This is something that you spoke about, publicly a little bit when Colton's season of The Bachelor came out, of just how we're so obsessed with virginity in our culture. And like, why do you think that is? Like, I have some ideas around that, but...
Well, we've made virginity a measure of morality, which is absurd, because it doesn't matter if you have sex with 0 people or 1,000 people. What matters is how you treat those people and how you treat yourself. So you can be a terrible, awful person and have sex with 1 person, and you can be a terrible, awful person and have sex with 20, and vice versa. Of course, you can be a very good person. So I don't think we should worry so much about numbers. But I do think that in a culture where we showcase sex everywhere, but we don't really talk about it. It's one of those ways that we can talk about sex in a simplified way. And so I can say, I'm a virgin, like that says something about me, when in fact, all it says is that I haven't done a specific thing. So if I were to say, I've never traveled to Africa, what does that say about me? Nothing, other than the fact that I've never traveled to Africa. So, and traveling to Africa is probably, more of a challenge for most people than having sex, right? There are more barriers to traveling to Africa for the average person. So
most people would talk a lot more about their travel upcoming to Africa than they do talking about sex before they have it.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, if you go to Africa on a safari, chances are it's on your Facebook, it's on your Instagram. But I Just Had Sex is only a Saturday Night Live spoof song.
Yes.
It's not our real
I just had sex.
What does he do after? Bake a pie or something like that?
That was a great spoof that they did on SNL. All right, we're going to take a short pause here to share a lovely sponsor of the podcast who you guys have probably heard me talk about before, which is Away. They design beautiful suitcases that are also very durable. I travel all the time, and they have features inside there that just help keep everything organized. It's super easy to carry up and down the steps because it is honestly very lightweight, and I don't have an elevator in my apartment building, so lugging suitcases up and down my steps used to be super, super annoying and difficult, but I'm actually able to fit a lot of things in this suitcase, and it still feels pretty lightweight. They have wheels that don't stick and a laundry bag for clothes that is super convenient. And Away will fix or replace your suitcase ASAP if anything ever breaks, which means that you never really have to worry about your luggage. They also provide you with a 100-day trial on everything Away makes. So you can take it out on the road, you can live with it, travel with it, get lost with it, whatever you want to do. And if you decide it's not for you, you can return any non-personalized item for a full refund, no ifs, ands, or asterisks. I mean, if that's not a reason to try it, I don't know what is, except maybe also the fact that in addition to a 100-day trial on everything that Away makes, that as a listener of Let's Talk About It, you can get $20 off a suitcase when you visit awaytravel.com/Taylor2019 and use promo code Taylor2019 during checkout. Now, I know we are in 2020 now, but this code is Taylor2019 for $20 off of a suitcase. So make sure to check it out and go to visit awaytravel.com/Taylor2019 and use promo code Taylor2019 during checkout. Hope you guys check them out and hope you like them. And we can get back to the show. When I think back to having sex for the first time, I was with my boyfriend. I believe I was like 14 when we met. And for whatever reason, it was in my head, probably society, that I needed to wait till I was at least 16.
That's the number where people sound a little older. It's acceptable.
Yeah. And like initially, before I met him, I thought, I'm going to wait to have sex until I'm 18 because that means I'm officially an adult. Like, I was like, I don't want to be considered a whore or like a slut. Like, I'm going to wait till I'm a full adult and have sex when I'm 18. And then met him when I was like 14. And then I was like, okay, like maybe just at least like 16. And we had, done everything except intercourse for several months. And I remember my mom had asked me, she was like, oh, like, do you think you want to get on the pill? And I was like, no. I was like, I'm not even having sex. Like, I had a lot of attitude. Not much has changed, but I was just like, no, like, we're not even there yet. And literally like a week later, I was like, hey, so what about this birth control thing?
That's so good that your mom asked you.
Yeah. Well, she had me like a month after she turned 20.
Okay.
So, and same with like, it's a cycle in our family. So I've been the first person to break that cycle, and in large part because we have those conversations. And it's something I've talked about quite frequently with people, actually. Literally Monday, as I was picking up my favorite vegan peanut butter cookies in Seattle from these guys that have a coffee shop there, Sam and Berry Goods and Convoy Coffee, who are absolutely fantastic. And we were just talking about, dating, and it was like, yeah, like people don't talk about sex before you do it. And I was like, I talk about sex so much with someone before we do it. Like, they know what I like. They know what I don't like. I know about their past sexual experiences. Like, if you don't feel comfortable to talk about it, then you shouldn't insert inside me. Like, I shouldn't feel comfortable with you being inside of me if I don't even feel comfortable discussing it with you.
It's the most physically vulnerable thing. So we need to also make it personally and emotionally vulnerable to match that.
Yeah.
And it is scary to me that people can have sex but not talk about it. And I mean, even just the fact that we work in this field, we're always talking about it. Yeah. And when people ask me what I do for a living, people are either super curious and want to ask me 1,000 questions, or they're quite off-put by it, and they're really concerned that, like, all I care about is sex.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, do you think dentists dream about teeth and, like, rub off to teeth? Or, I mean, I don't know. Like, there are lots of other things in my life. Sometimes I think I'm the least sexual sexologist because I do like sex.
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoy it.
Yeah.
I'll take more.
Yes.
But there are a lot of other things in life. And there are some crowds where I feel as though I'm the prude, right? So I was on a naked cruise, a clothing optional cruise recently.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and it's all couples and mostly people who are kind of monogamish or consensually non-monogamous or just people who are open-minded. Yeah. And I'm working. So I love my job and I have no complaints. I just have to give 2 speeches, and we were in the south of France and we were in Ibiza. Like, I have no complaints. But it's for some people, it's like a wild week of sex. And for me, I'm like, I just want to eat the food in Saint-Tropez. I just want to take in the beaches of Ibiza. And I'm like, am I not sexual enough? And so even as a professional, you start to compare yourself and say, am I enough? Am I doing enough? And my husband was with me. I'm not going to go on one of these cruises by myself, let me tell you. And I was thinking, is he bored? Is he thinking like, well, all these, first of all, let's be clear, 750 people on the cruise. Not everyone's having orgies, but more than on an average cruise.
Yes. You're seeing more penises and boobs and vaginas on this cruise than you would on a normal one.
Exactly. And I would say it's a more sexually active crowd because this is part of the appeal of this cruise, right? You can go on this regular cruise normally where it isn't focused on the erotic and the sexual. But I remember thinking to myself, am I doing enough here? And I said, first of all, I'm working, so I'm not messing around or anything like that. But we can still use the ambiance and the energy to fuel our own sex lives. And I said to my husband, I'm like, do you want to be doing more? Like, do you want to go to the playroom? Do you want to go out more? And he's like, no, man, I'm tired too. So, and you know, 5 years from now, we might go on that same cruise if they'll still have me. And I might feel really differently. So, and that's part of, evolving as a couple, evolving on your own and being okay with your own sexuality. But those standards of, I have to wait till I'm 16, I remember thinking that way too. Yeah. And then it all went out the window.
Yeah. And also there's all these other constructs around that, right? That it's like, not only, I'm going to wait till I'm 16, but, it's with my boyfriend.
Yes, of course. We're in love.
Yes.
We're in love.
Yeah.
He loves me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that is also very, very gendered. It's highly gendered because women are taught if you give it away, he will leave you, right? So in the hetero context. And so we have this notion that we might be being used. And what does that tell us about our own pleasure? Yeah. Because I didn't have sex because there was any pressure to do so. I had experienced what it felt like to do all these other things. I was like, well, let's do that other thing too. Because if there's another thing I can try, I'd like to feel that orgasmic response again. And I think it's also really interesting the way we break it down to one specific act because if you're having oral sex, are you not having sex?
Yeah.
Right? If I'm a lesbian and I'm only having sex with women and I've never had a penis in my vagina, am I a virgin? Come on, this is so absurd. And we've got T.I. out there spewing the nonsense about his daughter and
hymen.
And people are saying, well, she's an adult. She could have said no. And I'm thinking, but what about the power?
Yeah.
The power. Who is economically more powerful, socially more powerful? And it's a parent-child relationship. Yes. I heard she unfollowed him.
Really?
Yeah, I just heard that she unfollowed him. I also heard that she liked some of the tweets that were calling him out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a great source for these things, so.
I mean, I'm
Google that.
I'm double check our source here. But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of for that passive aggressive, like standing up for herself, being able to speak out without fully having to speak out. Right. Because there are a lot of power dynamics there. And I'm sure that's incredibly uncomfortable for her.
For anybody. I mean, I can't imagine. And that's the thing with children of celebrity couples or celebrities themselves. They don't necessarily opt into the spotlight, but they're thrust into it. Yeah. And that's got to be a very specific challenge to navigate just coming of age, but also having relationships.
Yeah.
Right. And anyone who's in the public eye even a little bit, you wonder, what do they want me for? Right. Yeah. Is the allure my attachment to celebrities or my own celebrity in and of itself? Like that's a difficult thing to navigate.
Yes.
And to let your guard down.
Yes. I don't claim that I'm a famous celebrity person, but I do still get recognized from the show. And that is something that crosses my mind when I am dating is like, is this person just using me because they want like business opportunities or like because I'm just this really like shiny thing? And it for sure makes me put my guard up. And in other ways, I just try to say like, well, fuck it. Like, this is my life. I do want to be open, and I do want to share my life with whoever this person is that I'm interested in and that they're interested in me. But it's a fine line to walk, and it's really, really shitty when situations do happen where you do feel like you were used, and it makes it hard.
And that can happen with friends as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
oh yeah.
Again, we're not talking like we're these huge celebrities, but if you have a little bit of access or a little bit of a platform, I do notice that people come back into your life and you have to be a little wary, and that kind of, it sucks.
Yeah. And when you said, I want to go back to this cruise for a second, because when you're at this cruise and you're there professionally, but people, I imagine, are also trying to get to you personally.
Not really, because so they know me from Playboy TV.
Yeah.
So they kind of, and I'm teaching while I'm there, and they're not really trying to sleep with me or anything like that. That happened before I did the Playboy show, right? So, but no, I find that people are super respectful. There are always going to be people who, push a little bit in any environment. But I think because there's such an emphasis on the communication and the consent in this group, let me not idealize it, because there are always going to be outliers, because humans be humaning. Yep. But I don't really feel that pressure.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people will feel that they know me, and in fact they do, from the podcast. And they actually know my husband as well, because he co-hosts it. And so they will know us, and it's singular in its direction, because we don't know them. Yeah. And so it's actually very humbling, right? But it also, you have to set different boundaries. Yeah. But I'll say overall, people are so kind and so nice. You get this, as a woman, you get the outliers where somebody's just dying to see you naked, because I go to this cruise, but I also go to these resorts. So it's called Desire Resorts in Mexico. Okay. And so it's clothing optional, and I love to be naked, but I don't want my photo taken, and I don't want to be gawked at, and I don't want to be measured up. I just want to be naked. I want to feel like the sand. I want to feel the sea. I want to feel the sun, and I don't want a stupid wet bikini ever holding me down. Like, once you swam naked, wearing a bikini or a bathing suit, it's torture.
Yeah, I can't say I've ever done it, honestly.
Swam naked. Well, you are in Toronto. There is a nude beach. It's -10 out there.
Yeah, it's a bit chilly. It's a bit chilly. I've been to a nude beach, but I didn't go into the water. There's like one nude beach in Seattle, and it's mainly like a lot of gay guys. Yes. Yeah. And I went with one of my guy friends that is gay, and one of my heterosexual girlfriends. And it was like a few summers ago, and we just all kind of hung out. We were like, oh, this is what people do to nude beach. And just like, I got rid of my tan line on my butt cheeks and just kind of hung out.
Yeah, it's so, for me, it's so freeing. And, nudity to me, I don't know if it's a more of a Canadian thing or if it's just personal. It's just your body, right? Yeah. There's nothing really to it. But I do run into the odd person who's kind of trying to scope you out naked. I had this guy on Facebook who kept messaging me saying, like, if I post a picture, he'll say, oh, you look beautiful, but not as beautiful as you looked naked on the beach at Desire. And he'll name the month and the date. And I'm like, okay, well, that sucks because I believe that I'm just enjoying myself there. If I were to wear clothes, people would judge me, right? Because it's not a nude and prude thing at Desire. You can be naked or you can be not naked or whatever the case may be. Yeah. But when everyone's naked, you actually want to get naked. And it's such an equalizer. It was a life changer for me to go down to this resort. I was so young when I first went, and everyone was older than me. And to see all different types of bodies, and not only is it clothing optional, but there are areas where you can have sex, just like specific areas. So there's this big rooftop jacuzzi at one of the resorts, and then a main floor jacuzzi, and they're huge. And everyone kind of congregates there at sunset, and there are these 4-poster beds all around, and you can have sex on them.
Desire Resorts?
Desire Resorts.
Desire Resorts?
On Instagram, it's Desire Experience. It's so cool. But what was so cool for me at 26 years old was seeing all different types of people having real sex. Yeah. And it revolutionized the way I feel about my body. I'm not lying. I really am less afraid of the way my body will change as I age, because these women were enjoying sex. Like, they had something I did not have. And it was a confidence that you just, I just didn't have at that age. I didn't dislike my body. I was never kind of raised with super negative messages. And that comes partly from, being Jamaican, where there's a broader sense of beauty. Like my mom used to say, what don't kill you, make you fatter. Like, so it was a positive thing. Like fatter was a positive thing. And so now at the same time, we have the Chinese side, which was a huge emphasis on being skinny. So, I was pulled in both directions.
Yes.
But anyhow, these women just, kind of knock my socks off. Walking the runway, they do like lingerie shows at night. And, people who look like they belong on a magazine get the same applause as people who, first of all, everybody belongs on a magazine, but people you would normally see on a magazine. So it's so cool. So cool.
Wow. It almost reminds me of the scene in Big Mouth. Have you watched Big Mouth on
haven't,
Netflix?
but I've heard such good things about it.
Oh, my goodness. It's absolutely amazing. I'm obsessed with Big Mouth. And in one of the episodes, the girls are feeling really insecure about their bodies. Missy has really small boobs, and so she's feeling like really insecure about that. And her mom takes them to a naked spa, and they see all these different bodies, and she's just kind of like, oh, wow, like, no one cares. Like, your body's just your body. But I think an experience like that, it makes sense that it would be really empowering, and you'd be able to look at sex and your body in a very different kind of open-minded way. So I feel like I need to check out this resort now.
Yeah, for me, it was life-changing, and I continue to go down there and work. Like, I teach different sessions down there, and we always look forward to it. Like, it's nice to be naked. Yeah. It's nice also to feel the sexual energy, because I would say probably 50% of people there are monogamous. So it's a mix, but it's just the energy of, if, for example, my husband and I we used to be more exhibitionists. So it would be fun to have sex on the beds while everyone was in the jacuzzi, and you're not really paying attention to them. Yeah. Right. It's not like they're sitting around watching or, evaluating you or something. That's what I'm doing, because I'm the sexologist. No, just kidding. A little to the right, 25 degrees to the left.
Yes. Observing all the things. Yeah. And so, because sharing this experience at the resort, but then I've also heard just a lot about Toronto and it having quite a sex scene. And I've heard there's, a few sex clubs here, and I'm curious what your experience has been with them and how that works for you in your relationship. And just, I think people hear sex club and they think this like dingy, like underground, like, really sweaty, stinky, like just really weird vibes. And I've never been to one before. I will potentially by the end of this trip. We'll see. But
okay, so there's a sex club downtown called Oasis Aqua Lounge.
That's the one I've heard of.
And it is taking it from the back room to the living room. So rather than being in a dingy strip mall out on the outskirts, it's in the middle of our city. It's across from our old Maple Leaf Gardens, which is where our Maple Leafs played hockey for many years. It's actually really close to my house. You could almost walk. So it's downtown. It's in an old mansion. So we're in a city here. So our mansions aren't like LA mansions. Mansions are not huge here because we're dealing with city prices.
Yep.
But it's in an old house. It has, but it's all renovated, and it has so many different levels. So it has a pool with a jacuzzi outside, and it's super heated. So even in the winter, it's kind of sexy to jump in there. Of course, you have your locker rooms. On the main floor, there's a dance floor and a bar and some poles. And as you go up, there are all these different rooms. So there's rooms that have more kinky stuff. There's rooms that are a little bit more romantic. I believe they're always changing it, but there are rooms where there's a glory hole, if that's what you're into. There's the ones with the single-way mirrors. So if you're an exhibitionist, you can go on one side. If you're a voyeur, you go on the other. There's actually a shaggin' wagon where they have an old VW, what do you call it? Like a big van thing. And they've cleared it out and put a mattress in it. So it's kind of a fantasy land. And what's really cool about Oasis versus so many other clubs, because oftentimes clubs are really great and they tend to focus mostly on swingers. Oasis isn't like that. They have a night for trans folks. They have a student night for the university students where they get a discount. They have couples nights. Of course, they have swinger nights. They have femme-only nights. So for women, they have all these different themes. Like I saw one once and I wanted to go where it's just hot men who wait on you so that you can eat off of them. They can be your human table if that's what you're into.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So as I say this, I know that this will sound super out there for some people, but what I really believe that there is such huge value, not only in being around naked people, if not that everyone's naked there, but also in seeing real live sex.
Yes.
Because when you see real live sex, you realize that it's not all like the chimpanzee, ooh, ooh, yeah. Ooh. It can be very varied. And there's such a broad spectrum of what people enjoy. Yeah. And I love the idea of, some of the couples I work with will go to the sex club, never to participate, but just to be there and have those discussions and put themselves in situations that feel a little tense. Not if you're in a bad place in your relationship, but if you're in a good place, the foundation is there. You've got the trust, the communication, the respect, the honesty. To push your boundaries and do something that feels a little risky can really take your relationship to another level. So I'll always tell people, like, the rule is, if this is your first time, set a time limit. Decide how many drinks, if any, you're going to have. Agree that, if somebody talks to you, how you're going to set your boundaries. Like, don't dive in and think, oh, I'd really like to go to a sex club and I'm going to have an orgy. Yeah. The first time, it's hands off. You do nothing, and then you can work your way up depending on your comfort level.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I do think that seeing that real sex and seeing real bodies can make such a huge difference. Recently, I'm a little late-ish to like the masturbation experience. Oh. And as I've tried to figure out, how does this work for me? I've watched a lot of Erica Lust films and have super, super enjoyed on Ex Confessions, just seeing people that have hair on their armpits and have hairy legs and are going to reach for the lube and things like that it feels like, oh, that's just like a real normal experience. Like I can relate to, and I can put myself in that situation. And it does normalize a lot of some of these insecurities that I think we grow up having around sex. And I mean, my thought with the sex clubs, I think, I don't know. I definitely want to go. I saw that they have a naked karaoke night. I know.
It's not porn karaoke, is it?
No, it just said naked karaoke.
Oh, so it's regular karaoke.
Yeah.
But naked.
Oh
my gosh. I feel like my husband would love that. He loves karaoke. He doesn't love being naked as much, but I think he could get into it.
Yeah. I don't know. I do think part of me just enjoys putting myself in uncomfortable social situations just to observe and see how I react, see how the person I'm with reacts, and just check out just the new different dynamic. And I get it can be a scary place for people to go. And I love the advice of just taking those first steps of observing the first time and setting those boundaries and communicating about that up front. I think that can be super helpful. I'm curious if there's a night that you've been that you totally loved, or
So I'll be honest, I work a lot and I travel a lot. So I'm not in Toronto a lot. So the times that I've been to Oasis, it's because I was teaching there. So on Saturday nights, they'll have a workshop. And so I'll teach a workshop. But what I found on those Saturday nights when I've been there, my husband's one of those people who will always show up and help me out a little, especially when it's at a sex club. But he came to the club. He came. Yeah. And then he came. And people were just cool, and they were dancing and having a good time, and it was light. So we ended up staying all night. So even though I, paid to be there from say 9 to 10, we ended up staying all night long. And we ended up, here's the other cool thing. We ended up actually taking a private room. So I think they also have a couple of rooms where if you feel all aroused and you're really enjoying yourself, but you also want to go on your own, maybe it's a group of you, maybe it's two of you. I think if I recall correctly, last time we went way up top, and they'll give you a key and you can go to one of these rooms. So you can really dip your toe in or dive in head first, kind of however much you want. So it was a Saturday night every time I've been there that I really, really enjoyed. I haven't seen, I see they have all these cool events, and the truth is I just am always traveling. And when I get home, I'm home for 2-3 days, and I just want to stay on my blue couch in my bedroom and not talk to anybody.
Yep. I feel that.
And perhaps not have sex. But I think you'll really enjoy it. One thing I noticed at Oasis and other sex clubs like it is that people let their guard down a little bit more. If you go to a regular nightclub, there's a more performative element to it.
Totally.
People aren't drinking as much, first of all. So people are not getting drunk at Oasis.
Yeah.
Right? At a regular nightclub, people are ordering bottles. And in fact, they mandate that you, and it's kind of a problem that they mandate you must purchase, if there's 4 guys, you have to buy 2 bottles. It's like 50 ounces of booze for 4 people, right?
Yeah, it's absurd.
Yeah. So you won't see people drinking as much. I believe I have to check on Oasis's cannabis policy because here in Canada, cannabis is legal.
Yep. So in Seattle too.
Yeah. I think maybe they have different events around that as well. Sex and cannabis. I don't know if you've covered that yet.
I have not covered that yet. I'm very curious to try out like some lube though, because I've heard amazing things.
I should have brought you some.
I've heard amazing things, but haven't tried it yet. Even slightly late to the lube game, but I feel like I'm learning so many things, and having all these kinds of conversations definitely helps as well. Just thinking about everything that you've said about the sex club, I think really helps to knock down some negative stereotypes that people might have listening.
Yeah, basically it's like going to another nightclub. It's not as crowded. People don't drink as much. And if you want to find the spaces where sexier stuff is happening, you can. Now, if you expect to walk in and see orgies everywhere, you're going to be let down because that doesn't always happen, right? Ultimately, people do what the mood strikes them to do. And the crowd is going to vary from night to night. I mean, I'll be honest, I've been to other sex clubs that are kind of dirty and seedy, and I've wanted to leave. I went to one sex club in South Florida once where we went into a private room, and I guess the lock wasn't working, and they allowed single guys that night, and somebody just kept pushing it open, and we had to yell at him and say, and we were like in the middle of it. My husband was like, come on, I'm almost done. And he's up on his knees on the mattress, holding his hand against the door, holding it shut. So, I mean, and those type of, I'm making a joke of it, but those type of consent violations can be really frightening. But overall, if you do a little bit of research, you'll find great clubs. And I'll tell you this, most good clubs will also have an orientation session for newbies. Aww. Yes. So, for example, I know several sex educators in Toronto who will take you to Oasis and walk you around and show you around. Actually, Luna does that. I should see if Luna's available to take you around because Luna Matadas is another sex educator. Another woman of color does like just the most amazing work. She has the brand Peg the Patriarchy.
I do think I've seen that. Yes.
Yep. Yeah. So she's Toronto based as well. So she'd be a great, and I do think that the clubs that are really focused on people's safety and enjoyment and not just on making a buck or not just on getting their own rocks off will have opportunities for you to learn, not just to come and engage, but to learn.
I love that because it helps create more of a sex positive community and helps you to better be able to have sex not only with yourself, but with your partner and with future partners. And I think all of that education piece is so important. One thing I usually start off the episode with when I have someone who is an expert or, a professional in their field is what made you get into that field. And I'm curious if you could share with us a little bit of just how you got here.
Yeah. I was a high school teacher. So I was a high school teacher with the Toronto District School Board in Toronto downtown. I was working in an alternative school with students who were 16 to 21. Most of them were either street involved, probated, back to school with a probation officer. So they were considered what we call at risk. Yeah. And you could see the cost of a sex education system that was failing them. So they were coming to me with unplanned pregnancies. They were coming to me living with abusive partners. They were coming to me, getting really, really high for days. And all of this relates to sexuality and relationships. Yeah. And so I said, we have to do better. And we actually do have a decent sex education system here, especially the fact that our curriculum is actually mandated at the provincial level, so the state level. So it's not about principals or school boards deciding, it's mandated by the government. But of course, teachers don't have the supports they need. So that's how I got into it. I was a teacher and I wanted to develop programming to support teachers. And I still do that. It's not a big part of my business, but it's what I do on a volunteer basis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I love it.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. And I didn't, when I graduated, I was like, oh, I'll get a job with the school board as a sex education consultant. And they were like, who, what now?
Yeah.
Don't you ever call us again. Right. And so then I had to forge a different path. So I started speaking and writing and doing some media stuff. And it's funny, full circle though, it brings me back to the school board because now that old guard has moved on and they're more evidence and research based.
We have to explain this right now. Outside of our window, there is a very fluffy little dog with the most adorable sweater on.
His sweater has ears. Squirrel.
That is too cute.
I'm so glad you interrupted because I find it really hard to focus when there's a cute dog.
Yes.
Some people are into like men and women and bodies and they're distracted by sex. I'm distracted by dogs.
I'm mainly distracted by cats, but this
kitties.
little dog will do as well.
I'm a dog pervert because my dog died in April and we haven't gotten a new one.
I did see your post
so now
on that.
I want to touch every dog.
Yeah.
Come here, little puppy. I've got candy. I've got meat.
I mean, we can also take a mini break and you can go out and pet the dog.
I'll pet him after.
Yes.
They're laughing at me from out there because they can see that I've got all eyes on this dog.
Yes.
But the dog's getting lots of attention. I always think about dogs and how everybody touches them and how much affection they get and how deprived we are as humans.
Stop. Literally. Oh my God. Who was I just speaking with? Oh, my super dear friend Colin, he and I were chatting and he realized in one of his relationships, she didn't like to be touched. She had been in previous relationships that were very physically abusive. And so she just was not about the physical touch. And so for a long time, he shut that piece of himself off. And he was just reflecting on the fact that recently he thought having his cat Tom, he was like, yeah, with my current partner now, I've been a lot more affectionate. I think Tom, my cat, had a lot to play in that part, actually. And I was like, stop, this is amazing. He was like, yeah, like just, being affectionate with Tom and, getting to like physically touch and play with him like that and snuggle, like has really brought out this more physically affectionate side of me with my girlfriend now. And I was like, oh, see, this is why animals are amazing.
They really are. And when you think about, say, for instance, a 16-year-old boy who has been told that he's not supposed to be weak, he's not supposed to be affectionate, he's allowed to touch only for sex. And certainly we're seeing shifts because young folks are getting smarter than us, thank goodness. But they can still be super playful and almost babyish with a dog. So or a cat. So it allows, or a hamster, whatever you're into. A goldfish. Can you pet a goldfish? No, I think a goldfish would die.
I don't know.
This is why all my fish died.
Yes. You're like, love me.
I just want to snuggle. But I think that it's important to look for other outlets of affection. The other thing I see when we have desire differentials in relationships, when people are like, oh, I want to be touched more, and their partner says, no, I feel overwhelmed. If we get away from this monogamous lens of trying to get all of your needs fulfilled by one person, you're able to say, well, what are other sources of affection? Because we're not going to force your partner to be affectionate. And you can't ask this one person to do everything for you. So can you be affectionate with your animal? Can you be affectionate with your kids? Can you be affectionate with extended family and friends? And I see this often, these differentials in affection desire, not just in sexual desire, but there are many other outlets, and you can always find a compromise if you get over this romantic notion that one person is going to fulfill all your needs.
Just all the snaps for that. I feel like there needs to be so much more education just around that piece in and of itself. And the conversation around monogamy is so emotionally fueled, and I'm trying my best to have it, but I love everything you just said.
I think it's fear fueled.
100%. 100%.
It's a fear that I'm going to lose my partner, despite the fact that the data says that commitment, trust, and passion are just as high in consensually non-monogamous relationships. It's this fear that you're going to feel more jealous, but jealousy is actually lower in consensually non-monogamous relationships. And then I think if you really know you're monogamous, because some people really are, it's this fear that someone in an open relationship is getting something you're not getting.
Ooh, right? That's a good one.
Usually when we're judgmental of something, there's a piece of it that we either want or we see in ourselves. And, of course, in many cases, we want to have our cake and eat it too. Not everybody. Some people are really fulfilled in monogamy, but not everybody is. And I think the problem is we don't opt into it. We fall into it. It's our default. It's like, well, we've been dating 2 years, so we should move in together. We've lived together a year, so we should get engaged. We're engaged, so we have to get married. We're married, so we should have children. And then all of a sudden, you wonder where part of your life went. Now, that can be a beautiful chain of events if you've thought about all your options and you say, oh, you know what, I want to move in together, or you know what, I really want to marry you, or you know what, I really want to have kids. But if you just do it by accident because you think it's what you're supposed to do, that's when you run into problems.
And unfortunately, I do think that is the path most people are in relationships. And that's one of the things I try to call to the front when I bring up monogamy, is that I just want people to be reminded that it's a choice, that it does not have to be the default, that there are other options. But I think, like you said, all those 3 fears come up. But I think maybe a 4th one is that we then fear that we're not enough. It becomes this, wow, this person, like, why can't I be that for you, though? Like, again, this notion of wanting to be someone's everything. I can't tell you how many messages I've received when I talk about this of, like, oh, like, you must just feel really insecure about yourself. Like, oh, I'm so sorry that, like, someone made you feel like you weren't enough and that you can't, like, you know.
You're not enough.
Yeah. And I'm like, no,
you're
literally, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Is like, I can't be everything. Yeah. And that's so unrealistic to not only put on myself, but to also then put on my partner. And that it creates so much of this pressure between the two of us that then we're just like mindlessly walking along this path of all these milestones and these things that we think we're supposed to be doing, but not necessarily doing them intentionally. And then I think you're like walking through life with this very blurred lens, and it I think just creates more disconnect for not only with our relationship with ourselves, but also with our partners. And
imagine we did that in any other realm. Like, we're friends. Aren't I enough? Why do you need another friend? Yeah. Right? Why do you? It's sort of when you think about a child, when you get pregnant and you have a baby, the older child inevitably feels a little bit of jealousy, feels a little bit of threat. However, that 2, 3, 4, 5-year-old is able to work through that with support. So if a 2-year-old can do it, an older person can do it as well, hopefully an adult. But if you take the expectations we put on intimate relationships and apply them anywhere else, you know that they're going to fail. And the data says that they're mostly failing anyways, right? We've got a 41% divorce rate. We've got a 24% infidelity rate. Marital satisfaction rates are on the decline. Marital rates are on the decline. Yeah. So we have to do something and say, how can we think more outside the box? Does that mean we need relationship anarchy in which there are no rules whatsoever? Sure, that works for some people, but it doesn't work for everyone. Yeah. But at least have that conversation about monogamy. Otherwise it's toxic.
Yeah. And I think most people envision this just anarchy of a relationship as what non-monogamous relationships are. That immediately, because it's not monogamous, that it's just this chaos and just having sex with a bunch of people all the time. And it's like, that's quite unrealistic that people actually live like that. Like,
of course. And polyamorous, for example, the focus is on the relationship, on the love.
Yes.
And even for the small, like it's a very small people who practice relationship anarchy, really what they're saying is that they don't necessarily prioritize one over another. Right? And I'm sure that can be challenging, but so can monogamy. Yeah. You'll always hear people say that, like, oh, well, I knew someone in an open relationship and they broke up. And I'm like, oh my God, have you ever met someone in a monogamous relationship who broke up?
Yep.
Ever?
Yeah.
Right. At some point. Right? Yeah. Someone in your family, someone sitting at the table, like all of these. Have you ever broken up with someone?
Yep.
Then monogamy failed. But we don't blame monogamy, and I wouldn't blame monogamy. There are lots of reasons why relationships fail.
Yeah. And it's not necessarily because of the dynamic that, that the relationship was put under. I so appreciate this conversation around monogamy, and I really, really want to continue it. But we have to kind of wrap up a little bit. And one thing I want to make sure to talk about in future episodes, especially with the women guests that I have, because I think female masturbation in and of itself is a bit stigmatized and in a way over-sexualized. And I also think, even for myself, like, I didn't feel like I knew or heard enough women speaking about it to have it be a normalized thing for me. So I'm hoping that kind of asking this question will be helpful for listeners who maybe haven't experimented with themselves in this way, and for maybe those who do feel any kind of shame or guilt around it. But I'm curious for you, when you first started kind of experimenting with masturbation, and then fun question, if you have any favorite toys that you would recommend.
Yeah, so I do recall that I masturbated from a really young age, and I don't believe it was sexual. It was more a rubbing.
Totally.
That. So to say it's not sexual, it wasn't sexual in an adult way.
Yeah.
It was a physical release and a physical soothing.
Yeah.
And my mom tells me that she told me when she saw me doing it, oh, you need to do that in your room.
Yes.
That's private, which is a great response. And, my mom, didn't talk really formally to me about sex. It wasn't, a super open conversation, but she did buy me different books, like Where Did You Come From and What's Happening to Me. And, she taught me, I believe that I was taught that sex should be reserved for marriage, or at least for a very serious relationship when I was older. So it wasn't, I wouldn't say it was a sexually liberal household. It was a naked liberal household. My dad they were always naked. I was like, oh my God. My boyfriend in high school was like, oh, he's in his tighty whities and he just worked out. Seriously, this is my life. I don't know how I even had a boyfriend. It's
amazing.
He left shortly thereafter.
It's like, I'm on my way out.
My dad was the secret weapon to get rid of them. But it was kind of normal for me. When you talk about how there are these two sides to masturbation, one of shame and one of hypersexualized objectification. And I think that often comes from porn, mainstream porn, where a woman who looks a very specific way with very long nails is jamming something into her vagina, in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out. And she's making lots of noise, or she's using something that's phallic shaped.
And then she's squirting everywhere.
Right.
It's everywhere.
And exactly. And the orgasm is audible to all of her neighbors. And so I can explain that my masturbation looks very different. So I don't talk a ton about my body. And the reason I don't is that as a woman in this field and in the public eye, we're constantly being harassed and sexualized. And so I'll remind you not to harass or sexualize me as I share my story. But for me, it's a rubbing on the outside. It's a pulling on the outside, and I squeeze my legs together and I point my toes. And I often relate it to climbing those high ceiling ropes in gym class when you're like wrapping your legs around something. And even when I'm having intercourse, that's what feels good for me. And that is not what is considered sexy looking, right? I'm not bouncing up and down. I'm not popping my hips. I'm doing something that feels really genuine for me. And I'm lucky enough to have a partner who is really turned on by genuine pleasure as opposed to performance. I'm not saying you can't do things that are performative. There's nothing wrong with enjoying performance also. But so that's what it looks like for me. Toys-wise, so disclaimer, I work a lot with WeVibe, but they have like this broad range of toys. So I'm in love with the WeVibe Wish, which is sort of the shape of a computer mouse, but a little rounder on the edges, more triangular. And it's soft and plush, and it just wraps around the outside really nicely. Yeah, it's a beautiful toy. And then for partnered sex, I'm a fan of the Pivot, which is a penis ring that is sort of angled nicely so you can use it in lots of different intercourse positions. Yeah.
I'll have to look both of those up.
Yes. I'm sure we can send you them if you want them.
I would love to try them out. I'm so glad I asked this question again, because it does literally just what I said before I asked it, that it helps normalize what you experience. The squeezing of the legs. Again, you really got to watch Big Mouth, and then we should talk about it. But Missy, this character who apparently I'm very similar to, she has this little stuffed animal, and they show where, they're in elementary school, and she's just like squeezing this little guy with her legs, and she's just like humping him and, just really putting him in there. And her mom says that. Her mom is like, just make sure you play with him in your room.
That's great.
I loved that. I completely relate to the squeezing. Sometimes I just wake up and I realize I'm just like squeezing my thighs together, and it's just like so incredibly pleasurable. And I'm like, I don't know what's happening. It's like I'm half asleep, half awake, but there is that really intense squeezing that happens. And I think even doing that during sex feels very good as well.
I love that half asleep, half awake. Have you ever had sleep sex?
Yes. I'm not like a horny morning or afternoon person. I'm like I come alive in the nighttime kind of gal.
Okay.
And I love that, like, when I start to get a little deliriously tired, that kind of sex, just like a hot and heavy make out where you're like, you're kind of in and out of that sleep. I think that's just so sexy.
A few times in our lives, we've woken up having sex, and like we were both so like full sexsomnia. And so there are issues around this, obviously around consent and around people. But, in the context of my relationship, is amazing because nobody had to do any work. Because, like you're super tired, you get to bed and you want to do it, but you're like, oh, I'm so tired. And then I'm like, did we just do that while we were sleeping? Like if I could clean the house, cook a meal, file the taxes, and do the sex, and you get the pleasure, and it's euphoric. It's only happened I don't know if it's only happened for us 2 or 3 times, but sometimes when I'm so tired, I'll fall asleep and be like, hope that happens tonight. I'll even say to my husband, I'm like, you have consent to do this while I'm sleeping. I mean, I'll wake up, obviously. Like, you wake up, but it's like such a cool thing, such a cool experience.
See, I don't think I've ever had that experience, but that does sound very cool.
So great.
With the right person, you know, with that consent.
It's been years for me. It's been years. I can't remember the last time.
It's a rare thing.
The sleep genies could just, you know, put that out there in the universe for me.
Well, you're putting it out there now in the universe. So you have to text me tomorrow morning. Let me know.
Oh, no, not tonight. I have a very early flight.
Yes. Exactly. Could you share where people could find you if someone wants to follow some of your work, follow your podcast, follow the morning show you're on frequently, follow your Instagram?
Yeah, I'm Sex with Dr. Jess on Instagram, sexwithdrjess.com, and the podcast is, you guessed it, Sex with Dr. Jess.
Quite simple. So make sure you guys check her out. And honestly, I have absolutely loved all of this conversation, and there's so much more we could go into, but thank you so much for everything that you've shared, both personally and just educationally and experiential wise. I've super appreciated it, and I know it's been really beneficial for listeners to hear all of this.
Thank you. It's been great.
Yeah. All right. That does it for today's episode. Thank you so much for making it all the way through and keeping your ears, your hearts, and your minds open. It would mean so much to me if you could take a second or two after listening to this episode to leave a review on iTunes and let me know what you're enjoying about the show. I love reading, you know, what your favorite episodes are, where you guys listen, and definitely feel free to share this with a friend. I mean, part of how we break down the stigmas around these topics is by talking about them, right? And sharing them with more people. So definitely share the podcast. And again, really wanting to include all of you in this podcast. So if you have questions or you want to share a thought or an experience, please send in a voice memo to ask.letstalkaboutit@gmail.com. And I'm really excited to keep having these conversations and breaking down these stigmas. So thank you all so much. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and I'll talk to you next time.